The sun had barely risen over the small town of Willow Creek, casting a golden haze across the fields. Armin wiped the sweat from his brow, his hands rough from years of tilling the stubborn earth. He loved the quiet rhythm of farm life, the smell of soil, the distant crow of roosters, the wind teasing the wheat. But lately, even this simplicity felt empty. Then she appeared. Ruby wasn't like anyone Armin had ever met. She simply stood at the edge of his field, her hair catching the morning light, eyes glimmering with a strange intensity. "I have a task for you," she said, voice soft, almost playful yet commanding. "Finish it, and I will give you anything you desire." Armin froze. He had no idea who this girl was, or why she was here. But there was something in her tone that sent a shiver down his spine, a thrill he couldn't explain. What task?" he managed to ask, his voice betraying a mixture of caution and curiosity. Ruby smiled faintly, producing a small, glowing seed from the folds of her cloak. "Plant this," she said, holding it delicately between her fingers. "Water it, care for it, nurture it, and it will awaken something extraordinary." Armin blinked. The seed was no larger than a pebble, but it pulsed faintly, like it had a heartbeat of its own. He glanced at Ruby, expecting her to laugh or jest, but her gaze was too serious, too intense. "Anything extraordinary?" he asked, trying to keep his tone casual, though every nerve in his body was alert. Ruby's smile deepened, a subtle, almost mischievous curve of her lips. "Yes," she whispered. "Everything you've ever wanted, including me." Armin felt his stomach twist. Her words, her tone, he wasn't sure if she meant it literally, or if his mind was already spinning too fast. Either way, he felt drawn to her, compelled by something far beyond logic. "Just plant it?" he asked cautiously, bending down to take the seed. "Yes," Ruby said, stepping closer. Her gaze never wavered. "Plant it, and be ready to witness a change you never imagined." Armin's fingers closed around the tiny object, its warmth surprising. He felt a thrill, a pull, a dangerous curiosity. The sun warmed the soil beneath his hands, but nothing could compete with the fire that suddenly coursed through him. He looked up at Ruby again. "I've never planted anything like this before." "You don't need to," she replied, her voice low, intimate. "Just trust me, and let it grow." As Armin sank the seed into the earth, he couldn't shake the sense that this was no ordinary seed, and that Ruby's words, her very presence, carried a meaning he might never fully understand. But one thing was certain. From the moment that tiny, glowing seed touched his soil, his life would never be the same. The wind stirred the wheat, carrying with it a whisper of promise, mischief, and danger, and Armin realized that the quiet farm he had always known was about to become the stage for something extraordinary. The day wore on, the sun climbing higher, casting sharp shadows across Armin's fields. He knelt in the soil, the tiny seed cradled in his hands. It glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat, and a strange warmth ran through his fingers. He couldn't explain why, but the seed felt alive. Almost aware. "Are you sure this is safe?" Armin muttered under his breath, as if Ruby could hear him, even though she had disappeared without a trace. Her words echoed in his mind. "Everything you've ever wanted, including me." Armin's face heated. He had heard the double meaning loud and clear. His pulse quickened at the thought, but he forced himself to focus. He planted the seed deep into the furrow, covering it with dark, rich soil. As he patted it down, he half expected it to vanish, or worse, explode into some alien magic. The farm felt unusually silent, almost expectant. Even the wind seemed to pause, rustling the wheat like it was holding its breath. Armin glanced around, half expecting Ruby to appear again, hovering like some celestial being, but the field remained empty, bathed in golden sunlight. "Grow," he whispered awkwardly, unsure if he was speaking to the seed or to something else entirely. Hours passed, yet nothing happened. Frustration crept in. He brushed dirt from his palms and stood up, scanning the horizon. That's when he noticed it, a faint shimmer in the center of the field, a distortion in the air, like the atmosphere itself was bending. Armin's heart leapt. Could it be the seed? He stepped closer, feeling the pulsing heat rise again. His fingers hovered over the soil, hesitant, trembling. Then, without warning, the shimmer rippled upward, and a faint, musical hum filled the air. "Impossible," he whispered, stepping back instinctively. And then he saw her, Ruby. She wasn't standing on the field. She was hovering slightly above it, translucent and radiant, like light had taken human form. Her eyes locked onto his, gleaming with mischief and power. "You did well," she said softly, her voice carrying a tone that made his stomach tighten. "Most would have ruined it, but you listened. You trusted me." Armin swallowed, suddenly acutely aware of her presence, her nearness. I just planted it, he stammered. I don't. Ruby laughed quietly, a sound like wind chimes caught in sunlight. That's all it takes, she said, stepping closer until the shimmer around her flickered like firelight across his face. Just a little trust. Everything else follows. Armin's mind raced. Everything else, including me? He felt the tension, the double meaning, curling like electricity around him. He wanted to ask, to challenge, but words failed him. Suddenly, the ground beneath him trembled. Tiny green sprouts erupted from the soil, growing impossibly fast, twisting into shapes that defied nature. Golden leaves unfurled like fingers, brushing against the sky. Armin staggered backward, his jaw slack. Ruby's eyes sparkled. This is only the beginning, she said. Care for it, and it will awaken wonders beyond your imagination. Ignore it, and... She let the sentence hang, a thrill of danger and promise vibrating in the air. Armin's pulse thundered in his ears. He reached out, brushing a leaf with the tip of his finger. Warmth surged into his hand, and a whisper of voices, ancient, melodic, filled his mind. His breath caught. Ruby leaned close, almost touching his shoulder, her voice dropping to a low, intimate whisper. Do you see now? This is what I meant, and soon it will ask more of you. Are you ready? Armin's head spun. Her words, her nearness, the living seed. He realized he was already in deeper than he ever intended. Yet, a thrill unlike anything he had known coursed through him. Ready? Ruby repeated, her eyes locked on his, daring him. He nodded, though he didn't know if he truly was. One thing was certain. Nothing on this farm, nothing in his life, had ever prepared him for this, for her. And as the sprouts grew taller, twisting toward the sky with a strange, golden glow, Armin knew one truth. The world he had known was gone, and the adventure Ruby promised had only just begun. Night had fallen over the farm, but the field glowed faintly under the moonlight, bathed in the golden luminescence of the sprouts. Armin stood at the edge, heart racing, eyes fixed on the twisting, vibrant plants. The wind whispered through the leaves, carrying an almost musical tone that set his teeth on edge. Ruby hovered above the tallest stalk, her form shimmering like liquid gold. She looked ethereal, untouchable, yet dangerously close. Her gaze met his, playful and piercing. You've done well, Armin, she said softly, voice layered with warmth and something more, something he thought he understood, but feared to acknowledge. The seed responds to you because you listened. Most humans are too stubborn, too afraid to trust what they don't understand. Armin's pulse quickened. I just planted it, he stammered, the tension in his chest pressing against his ribs. I don't know what this really is. Ruby's smile deepened, a dangerous glint in her eyes. Ah, but you do in a way, she whispered, leaning closer. The golden glow around her haloed her form, and Armin felt a shiver run down his spine. You understand more than you think, and soon it will ask more of you. Armin's stomach twisted. The way she said it, her nearness, her tone, it hit him differently than he expected. He had assumed her words were innocent, playful. But now he wasn't sure. His mind scrambled with possibilities, some exciting, some terrifying. Before he could speak, the sprouts began to move on their own. Leaves stretched toward the sky, vines snaking into the air, entwining with one another to form shapes that resembled doors, arches, even stairways of living plants. Golden sparks danced along their veins, lighting the field like stars brought down to earth. Ruby extended a hand, and the vines responded, curling gently around her fingers, rising and twisting to her command. Do you see, Armin? She said, voice low and intimate. This is the awakening. This is what I meant when I said I could give you more than you ever dreamed, including me. Armin blinked, confusion and desire tangled in his chest. He misinterpreted her words instantly, a rush of heat coloring his face. You mean, he stammered, heart hammering, the double meaning racing through his mind. Ruby tilted her head, a soft laugh escaping her lips. Perhaps that's what you think, she whispered, the glow of her aura reflecting in her eyes. But there is so much more. You misunderstand, and yet that curiosity, that desire to know, it makes you capable. It makes you ready. Vines shifted again, revealing a small alcove formed in the center of the field. Light shimmered inside, inviting, mysterious. Ruby gestured toward it. Step inside. See what you've helped awaken. Armin hesitated. Every instinct screamed caution. But curiosity, overwhelming, consuming, drew him forward. As he stepped into the alcove, warmth enveloped him, not just from the glow of the plants, but from the sensation of Ruby near. He could feel her power, the pulsing energy of the seed connecting them in ways he didn't fully understand. Everything you see here, every living thing, every spark of growth responds to trust, to care, Ruby explained, floating closer, her voice caressing the edges of his mind. And soon you'll understand how far that trust can go. But first you must learn. And you must obey. Armin's mind whirled. The words, her proximity, the golden aura, the vines, it was intoxicating, terrifying, thrilling. He could feel the double meaning of her speech, yet knew the truth was something far beyond what he imagined. Obey, he asked, voice trembling, unsure if he meant it literally, or if his mind was tricking him. Ruby's eyes sparkled with a mixture of mischief and command. Yes, she said softly, leaning just close enough for him to feel the heat of her presence. Obey the awakening, and it will give you more than you could ever imagine, including me. But not in the way you think. Armin swallowed, heart racing. He realized this wasn't just about him or the farm. This was something cosmic, something far beyond human understanding. And yet, he wanted it. He wanted her guidance, her power, even if he didn't fully understand the cost. The sprouts shivered and glowed brighter, as if echoing Ruby's words. The air vibrated with life, magic, and tension. Every nerve in Armin's body thrummed with anticipation, desire, and fear. The night had transformed the farm into something otherworldly. And in that moment, he knew that his life, everything he had known, had changed forever. Ruby's voice softened, almost a whisper, brushing against his thoughts. Step forward, Armin. Trust me, and discover what we can become together. And for the first time, despite every warning, he stepped closer. The morning sun filtered weakly through the mist, casting long shadows across the field. Armin had spent the night restless, replaying every word Ruby had said, every shiver-inducing glance. His muscles ached from the manual labor of the farm, but that physical tiredness was nothing compared to the storm brewing in his chest. Ruby floated silently above the vines, her golden aura pulsing gently. She seemed calm, untouchable, almost divine. Armin watched her, heart thudding. Are you really going to show me everything today? He asked cautiously, unsure if he wanted the answer. Ruby's lips curved into a faint smile. Yes, she whispered, voice low, soft, teasing. But only if you are ready. Every step you take today will change you, and perhaps test the boundaries of what you believe is possible. Armin swallowed. The double meaning of her words made his pulse race, but this time he was determined not to misinterpret her intent, at least not entirely. He nodded and followed her toward the central patch of the field, where the largest sprouts rose like pillars, entwined with sparkling golden veins. Ruby extended her hand, and the vines shifted, forming a path. Step carefully, she said. What you see now is only the beginning. The seed has been awakened, yes, but the world is watching. Not all who see its glow are friendly. Armin's brow furrowed. Watching? Yes, Ruby said, her eyes narrowing. There are forces, creatures, that hunger for this power. They will come. Before he could react, a gust of wind swept across the field, and with it came a shadow, twisted, alien, grotesque. From the edges of the field emerged beings Armin had only seen in nightmares, tall, wiry, with faceless heads and limbs that twisted unnaturally. Their eyes, or where eyes should have been, glowed an eerie violet. Armin stumbled backward, fear pinching his chest. What are those things? Ruby hovered higher, golden light blazing around her. Hunters, she said calmly, voice steady. They sense power. They sense fear. And they have come for the seed, and for you. The vines beneath Ruby writhed, forming shields and barriers. Energy hummed through them, the golden glow intensifying. Ruby extended her hand, and beams of light shot from her fingers, forming a web of protection. Armin's hands shook, but he forced himself to act. Following Ruby's silent commands, he grabbed a length of vine and twisted it, channeling some of the energy she had infused into the field. To his astonishment, it responded, pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. You're controlling it too? He asked, mixed with panic. Ruby's eyes softened. Yes, Armin. That is why I brought you here. The seed chooses, and it has chosen you. But power is meaningless without courage. The hunters advanced, their shadows stretching long across the golden field. Armin felt adrenaline surge through him, every nerve screaming. Ruby's voice cut through his panic. Focus, Armin. Do not fight them with brute force. Let the field guide you. Let the seed guide you. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes for a moment, and let instinct take over. The vines rose, twisting and coiling around the hunters, restraining them without harming them. Golden sparks flared as Armin's energy synced with Ruby's aura. A flash of movement, A hunter breaking free made Armin's stomach drop. Ruby reacted instantly, her voice sharp. Now, Armin, channel everything you have into the center. Together, they poured their energy into a single point, and the ground erupted in golden light. The hunters screamed, a sound that was not quite sound, and vanished into the mist, leaving the field eerily silent. Armin fell to his knees, gasping, every muscle trembling. Ruby landed beside him, her expression calm but intense. You did well, she said softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. The warmth of her touch sent a shiver down his spine, confusing desire and relief. I didn't know I could do that, he admitted, voice shaking. Ruby tilted her head, a small smile tugging at her lips. You didn't know, yes, but you trusted. That is what makes humans interesting. That is why I chose you. Armin's heart skipped. Her words hit him on multiple levels, her meaning intimate, yet far more profound. Chosen me for what? He whispered, unsure if he wanted the full answer. Ruby's golden eyes met his. To awaken more than just the seed, Armin, she said, voice like silk. To awaken you and the world. The sun broke fully over the horizon, casting long beams across the shimmering field. Armin realized something. His life was no longer his own. Danger, desire, and power intertwined in ways he could not yet comprehend. And Ruby was the key to all of it. But even as he processed that, a cold, creeping feeling crawled across his spine. The hunters had gone, but they would return. And next time, the challenge would be far greater. Ruby's hand left his shoulder, her smile turning mischievous. Rest, Armin. Tomorrow the real test begins. And as the golden light of the field shimmered around them, he knew, without a doubt, that his life and his heart had been changed forever. The night had fallen over the farm, a velvet darkness punctuated by the faint glow of the golden vines. Armin sat on the edge of the largest sprout, muscles still aching from the morning's battle. Every fiber of his being screamed exhaustion, yet he couldn't tear his eyes away from Ruby, who floated above the field like a goddess cloaked in shimmering light. You should rest, Ruby said softly, voice like a caress. Tomorrow will demand everything from you. I don't know if I can, Armin admitted, rubbing his temples. I've never felt anything like today. That power, that fear, and you. He hesitated, the words thick in his throat. Ruby tilted her head, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Me? Her voice dripped with amusement and a strange intimacy, though Armin wasn't entirely sure if he had interpreted it correctly. His cheeks heated. You humans are always thinking too much, she said, hovering closer. You misunderstand me far too easily. Before he could respond, the air shifted. A chill crept across the field, and the golden vines shivered. Armin's stomach dropped. From the darkness emerged the hunters, taller and more terrifying than before. Their violet glowing forms moved with uncanny silence, shadows stretching unnaturally across the ground. They're back, Armin whispered, panic rising. Ruby's aura flared, bright and fierce. Yes, and they are stronger. They've learned from yesterday. Her eyes met his, and something unspoken passed between them, a mixture of warning, encouragement, and something else that made his heart race. Armin, she said, voice low, this time, you must trust completely. Not just me, but yourself. Every move will decide more than life or death. The hunters lunged forward. Vines twisted and struck, but this time the creatures anticipated them, sidestepping and striking with blinding speed. Armin tried to react, but fear clawed at him. He stumbled, nearly falling into a tangle of golden energy. Ruby moved with grace, her hands weaving through the air, golden beams lancing from her fingers. Focus, she shouted, almost urgently. Let go of doubt. Armin's pulse raced. He remembered her words, the subtle double meaning behind them, the warmth in her presence that made every nerve stand on fire. He took a deep breath and let instinct guide him. The vines responded, wrapping and coiling around the hunters, but this time Armin added his own energy, pushing with all the courage he could muster. One hunter broke through. It lunged at Ruby, and Armin froze, fear paralyzing him for a split second. Then Ruby's hand shot forward, golden light erupting in a brilliant flare. The hunter recoiled, screaming a sound that made the night itself shiver. Ruby's eyes softened as she hovered closer. See, you can do this. I know you can. You just have to trust me, and yourself. Her words carried a heat Armin couldn't ignore. For a fleeting moment, he thought the meaning was not just about battle. His heart pounded, caught between awe, fear, and desire. Armin now, Ruby whispered, her voice trembling slightly urgent. Combine your energy with mine. One strike, We end this together. He nodded, stepping into the center of the golden field. As their energies intertwined, the light flared, brilliant and blinding. The hunters screeched, twisted, and dissolved into shadows that evaporated into the night. When the glow subsided, the field was silent once more. Armin fell to his knees, gasping for breath. Ruby landed beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. The warmth, the intimacy, the electricity of her touch made him shiver. You were amazing," he whispered. Ruby smiled faintly, her eyes bright with amusement and something else, something dangerously close to desire. "You were amazing," she replied softly. "Humans often underestimate themselves. But not you, not anymore." Armin's mind raced. He wanted to speak, to say everything he felt, but words failed him. The air between them thrummed with tension, romantic, dangerous, electric. Misunderstanding, maybe, but the pull was undeniable. The field settled, the golden glow dimming to a gentle shimmer. Yet Armin knew this victory was temporary. The hunters had returned stronger, others, unseen, surely waited. Ruby hovered above him, gaze distant, calculating. "Tomorrow there will be more," she said. "Challenges, choices, perhaps sacrifices. Are you ready?" Armin looked at her, heart hammering. I don't know. But I want to be. With you." Ruby's smile was faint, a mixture of mischief and something else unspoken. "Good," she said softly. "Then we begin anew. Together." As the stars blinked above them, the farm seemed almost alive with possibilities, danger, discovery, desire, and destiny intertwined. Armin realized fully, for the first time, that nothing in his old life had prepared him for this, and he wouldn't trade it for anything. The morning sun barely touched the edges of the farm when Armin awoke to a subtle hum in the air. The golden vines were still glowing faintly from last night's battle, but now the energy felt different. There was a vibration beneath his feet, almost like a heartbeat. "Ruby," he called, stepping into the field. She appeared instantly, hovering above a cluster of luminescent flowers at the edge of the property. Her eyes were sharp, scanning the horizon. "We are not alone," she said quietly. Her tone carried a weight that made Armin's stomach twist. Before he could ask, a faint shimmer appeared near the old barn, a portal of sorts, swirling with silvery blue light. The air was thick, charged with energy, and a scent of something ancient. "What is that?" Armin whispered, stepping closer. Ruby floated down, placing a hand on his shoulder. "A sanctuary, hidden long before humans walked this land. I've been searching for it, but the hunters were too quick. Now it is open for us." Armin's curiosity burned. "Sanctuary for what?" "For power, knowledge, and choices," Ruby said, her voice barely audible over the pulsing hum. She leaned closer, the light from her aura brushing his face. "Choices that will change everything, if you dare step inside." Armin swallowed hard, the memory of last night's battle still fresh. But curiosity, adrenaline, and something unspoken between them pushed him forward. "Then let's see it," he said. The moment they stepped into the swirling portal, the farm disappeared behind them. Light twisted and coalesced, forming a vast chamber carved from crystal, walls reflecting infinite stars. Floating platforms hovered above a lake of liquid light, and strange glyphs glimmered on the walls. This is incredible," Armin breathed, eyes wide. "I've never seen anything like it." Ruby's lips curved in a faint, almost teasing smile. "Few humans ever will, and even fewer are meant to understand it fully." Her eyes locked onto his. "But maybe you can, if you trust me." Armin felt his heart quicken. Her words, her gaze, the energy between them was electric. Every instinct screamed that there was more meaning in her voice than the sanctuary itself. He hesitated, unsure if he had misread her, but the hum of power beneath his feet pulled him onward. "Watch closely," Ruby said. She extended her hands, drawing golden threads from the glyphs. They twisted around her fingers, forming shapes that hovered in midair. "This is the heart of the sanctuary. It chooses who is worthy to command its power." Suddenly, a shadow flickered across the chamber. Armin tensed. Another group of hunters? But no, they were different, ethereal, almost spectral. They moved with intent, circling the chamber, testing. Ruby's voice dropped to a whisper. "They guard the choices. They do not attack unless you falter. You must remain steady." Armin's palms grew sweaty. He looked at Ruby, her presence grounding him even as her words carried that double meaning he could barely interpret. Every word she spoke seemed to tease a layer beyond the obvious. "Trust me," she said again, soft, lingering, intimate. Armin felt a jolt in his chest. Misunderstanding? Or was there something more? The ambiguity made his head spin, yet the sanctuary demanded focus. The floating platforms shifted, forming a path over the glowing lake. Ruby guided him. One misstep, and you are pulled into the depths. But one right move, and the sanctuary grants more than you can imagine. Armin took a deep breath. Each step felt heavier than the last, not just from the precarious footing but from the tension, thrill, and the unspoken energy between them. Halfway across, a platform dipped sharply. Armin stumbled, barely catching balance. Ruby's hand shot out, not to steady him physically, but to brush against his arm as if saying, "You can do this." He froze for a heartbeat, heart pounding. Was her touch a simple encouragement, or something else? He shook his head, forcing focus. The sanctuary wasn't forgiving. The final platform hovered above a crystalline pedestal, glowing brighter than all the rest. Ruby turned to him, her eyes locking with his. "The choice is yours, Armin. Take it or step back. But know this, once you claim it, nothing will be the same." Armin stepped forward, every nerve alive. The sanctuary seemed to pulse in response to his heartbeat. Ruby's voice was a whisper now, almost a caress. "Step carefully, and remember, I am with you." And as his hand hovered over the glowing pedestal, a surge of energy ran through him. Power, fear, exhilaration, and something more. Something he didn't yet understand about Ruby, her meaning, her presence. Something that made him realize that the next chapter of their journey would test not just courage, but desire, trust, and the thin line between misunderstanding and connection. Outside, the golden vines of the farm shimmered faintly, as if the earth itself waited, knowing that the destiny of a farmer and an alien girl intertwined with the sanctuary could reshape everything. Armin's fingers hovered over the glowing pedestal, its energy pulsating like a living heartbeat. The crystal light reflected in Ruby's eyes, making them shimmer with a mix of warning and mischief. This is it?" he whispered, barely able to speak. Ruby's lips curved into a faint smile. "Yes. The heart of the sanctuary. What you claim here will define not just you, but us." Armin hesitated. The energy was intoxicating, almost seductive. It hummed against his skin, brushing his senses awake in ways he couldn't describe. Ruby stepped closer, her presence overwhelming, grounding, and yet confusing. Every word she spoke seemed to carry more than one meaning. "Are you ready?" she asked softly, her voice brushing his ear. The intimacy of her tone made his pulse spike. He blinked, trying to separate reality from the magnetic pull of her aura. I think so." Ruby extended her hands over the pedestal, and golden threads of energy rose, wrapping around them both. "Then touch it, accept the power, and see what lies beyond." Armin placed his hand carefully on the pedestal. A surge of light engulfed him. He felt knowledge, strength, and visions rushing through his mind. Cities floating above the clouds, ancient machines waking, plants growing in impossible ways, all revealed to him in a heartbeat. But then he felt it, a whisper. Ruby's voice, soft, intimate, almost teasing. "You've never known desire until you've reached for what you cannot see." Armin's breath caught. He froze. "Desire?" he asked, unsure if she meant the sanctuary or him. His mind spun, torn between wonder and confusion. The energy between them was electric. Misunderstood or not, every nerve in his body screamed that she meant more than power. Ruby laughed lightly, a sound like wind through chimes. "Careful, farmer. The sanctuary tests your heart as much as your courage." Suddenly, shadows flickered at the edges of the chamber. Ethereal hunters emerged again, more aggressive this time. Ruby grabbed Armin's hand, pulling him to safety as the platforms shifted beneath them. "The sanctuary does not give its secrets freely. You must fight for what you deserve." Armin worked alongside her, moving with the strange precision the sanctuary demanded. Every step, every dodge, every touch from Ruby, intentional or not, set his senses ablaze. Misunderstanding her intentions, he felt his own pulse racing, excitement mixing with fear. They reached the center of the chamber, where a massive crystal rose from the liquid light. It shimmered with all the knowledge of the sanctuary. Ruby turned to him. "This is the ultimate choice. To claim it is to see the universe as it truly is, and to commit to me fully." Armin blinked, heart pounding. Did she mean power? Or herself? The ambiguity twisted his thoughts, but the thrill of the moment, danger, excitement, and attraction, pushed him forward. "Then let's do it," he said, voice firm, trying to ignore the storm of emotions in his chest. Ruby's hand brushed his as they both touched the crystal. Light exploded around them. Knowledge, understanding, and energy flowed into their beings. Armin felt his mind expand, his body shiver, and a strange warmth spread across him. Ruby's eyes softened. You see now, the sanctuary is not just about power. It reveals truth. And sometimes the truth is more intimate than you expect. Armin's cheeks burned. He realized that for all her mystical words, her tone, her touches, her teasing had carried a meaning he had misread. And yet, the sanctuary's challenge had tested him, their bond, and awakened something he could not deny. The chamber's energy settled, glowing softly. The shadows, the guardians, retreated. Ruby turned to him, eyes bright, voice calm but intimate. You've succeeded. And you've understood, at least a little of what I meant. Armin swallowed, realizing he had. The sanctuary's power was incredible. But the unspoken tension, the misunderstood intimacy, the thrill of the unknown, it was even more intoxicating. They stepped out of the crystal chamber, back onto the farm. The golden vines pulsed gently under the sun, almost approving of their triumph. Armin looked at Ruby. I think I get it now. Ruby tilted her head, eyes sparkling with amusement and warmth. Do you, farmer? Armin smiled, heart still racing. Yes, I think I do. And I think I'm ready for whatever comes next. Ruby's hand brushed his again, this time deliberately, her smile knowing. Good, because the world, the sanctuary, and perhaps even us have only just begun. The camera of the story would linger on them, standing amidst glowing fields, hands brushing, hearts racing, the line between misunderstood desire and adventure blurred, leaving the audience both thrilled and curious for what would come next. The evening sun dipped low over the golden fields, casting long shadows across the farmer's land. Ruby stood at the edge of the wheat, her eyes reflecting a mix of amusement and mischief. She had spent the entire day helping him, guiding his hands, laughing at his mistakes, and teasing him with her double-meaning words. The farmer, tired, sunburned, and utterly confused, couldn't decide if he was flustered, fascinated, or completely overwhelmed. You think this is just about planting wheat? Ruby asked, her tone playful, yet edged with something he couldn't quite place. Finish what I ask, and you might get more than you expect. The farmer swallowed hard, sweat trickling down his temple. He wanted to ask, wanted to clarify, but the words caught in his throat. He had no idea what she meant, and the ambiguity made his heart race faster than any work or danger had ever done. Ruby stepped closer, her shadow blending with his as she leaned down to inspect a sprouting seed. You're learning quickly, she said softly, almost whispering. Most humans, they don't notice the small details. But you might be different. Her words were innocent enough, at least he thought they were. But the way she said them, the spark in her eyes, the tilt of her head, it all sent a shiver down his spine. He misread every nuance, imagining things that weren't really there, and yet, he couldn't stop himself from imagining. Suddenly the air shifted. A low hum vibrated through the field, subtle at first, then louder, an energy he couldn't identify. Ruby stiffened, her eyes narrowing. She turned toward the horizon, scanning the distant trees, and the farmer followed her gaze. A strange golden light began to ripple through the edge of the field, unnatural and pulsing. They've found us, Ruby said, her voice steady but urgent. And this time, it's not just a test anymore. Before he could ask who they were, the wind picked up, bending the stalks around them, and a shadow moved swiftly across the field. The farmer took a step back, heart pounding. Ruby's hand reached for his, not in teasing but in protection. Trust me, she said, her grip firm. If you do exactly what I show you, we'll survive. But if you hesitate... Her words hung in the air, unfinished, leaving the farmer frozen between curiosity, fear, and a dawning realization. Whatever Ruby really was, this day was going to change everything he thought he knew about the world and about her. The golden light grew brighter, the shadow advancing, and the field that had felt so familiar and safe just moments ago now seemed like a stage for something far larger than either of them. Ruby's eyes met his, a mix of challenge and reassurance, and he realized, too late, that the joke, the teasing, the double meanings, they were nothing compared to the real danger arriving.